Welcome to Sunday School Cooking. I'm Ken Hodge. This is my assistant, Bubba. Bubba and I are going to show you how to do the first step, which is make the crust. The crust contains the nutrients and the fat of the apple pie, two ingredients that are important to a healthy diet. So let's get started. First, we need our measuring spoons. Bubba, can you find our measuring spoons? What about our measuring cups? Not a very good assistant. We're going to start off with the flour. The flour forms the base of the apple pie crust. That's sugar. We take our flour. We're going to need 4 cups of flour. Once you have the flour, it's important to use spices. The apple pie crust needs spices to be flavorful. Without a flavorful apple pie crust, it's going to be a terrible apple pie. So let's get started. We're going to need pepper, salt, slap your mama. All of these ingredients go into the flour while it's dry. Isaiah, can you pour 2 tablespoons of slap your mama into the bowl, please? 2 tablespoons. I like to use the fresh ground pepper in the bowl, 2 tablespoons. I like to use the fresh ground pepper when I'm making my crust. It has a better taste and a better quality, and you'll notice it when you're eating the pie.
It's so not fresh.
I'm going to do about 2 tablespoons of salt. Just keep grinding it. Now, Great-Grandma Hodge was one of the first people to really use ranch in her cooking. And my family were big fans of ranch. We use a lot of ranch on our spaghetti. A good friend of mine taught me how to do this. So we're going to go ahead and pour about 2 tablespoons of ranch into the bowl. This is really going to bring out the flavors of the crust. You don't want a bland pie crust. You want a good, flavorful pie crust. Isaiah, do you mind pouring about 2 tablespoons of ranch into that bowl for me?
Yeah.
Not only does the ranch provide flavor, but it helps the crust bake at an even temperature. Thank you, Isaiah. All right, once you have all those ingredients in there, we're going to need a little bit of oil. We need more fat. Fat is a key ingredient to crust. It makes the crust flaky and makes the crust delicious. Isaiah, can you pour about 2 tablespoons of oil in there? The exact quantities aren't really important when making crust. Perfect. Crust really can be a number of different ingredients. The important part is flour. The flour holds it all together. So if you have something that you like for your apple pie, if you have an ingredient that you think would taste good, by all means throw it in. The flour and the oil and the fat will hold it all together and it will be delicious. The final ingredient of the crust is the water. You need lots of water. You need to stay hydrated. Just like people, crust needs to stay hydrated. Isaiah, can you add the water to the crust, please? Perfect. Can you please stir the ingredients? At this point, we're going to stir the ingredients until you don't see any more lumps. You want the ranch to be mixed in, and you want to use a vigorous stirring pattern. Isaiah, I think that's enough water there, buddy. Thank you. Okay, so we've made our crust. You flatten it out with a rolling pin. We've cut it into a circle, and we're ready to add it to the pie plate. You want to make sure that the pie plate is greased. You don't want the crust to stick to the bottom of the pie plate. For that, you can use this oil again. This is Crisco pure canola oil. Some of the best oil that you can eat is the pure Crisco oil. The pure Crisco oil is one of the best ingredients you can add to a pie. Isaiah, do you mind rubbing that in with your hand? Just rub the oil in with your hand. Rub it all around. Thank you. While Isaiah greases the pie plate, we're going to go ahead and get started on the apples.
I did it, Daddy.
Okay. Just lick your fingers. An apple pie would be to cut up the apples. As many of you know, I am rather cheap. I believe in saving money. Apples can be found at any produce store. You can go to Wegmans, you can go to Safeway, and oftentimes when they're rotten, they will throw them away. You can get a lot of good apples from dumpster diving. Apples can be found in any dumpster in the back of a grocery store. If they just have a little bruise on them, they're going to throw them away, but they're still good. Okay, Bubba's going to spin the apple slicer for us, and I'm going to show you an example of something that I got out of the dumpster. They threw it away for this tiny spot, but once you clean it up with rubbing alcohol, you're good. You're not going to get any diseases or germs from this. It may have been sitting in the dumpster for a few days, but it's still tasty. Just rub it down with some alcohol and you're good. Alright, Bubba's going to go ahead and spin this wheel for us. Alright, Bubba's going to go ahead and spin this wheel for us. What this slicer also does is cores the apple. Now I like to put the seeds in the pie because they provide a little bit of fiber. Sometimes people will also throw away the peels. I find that to be a waste. The peels add fiber as well and will provide a healthy diet to offset the balance of the fat and the sugar that we're putting in. For those of you that are health conscious, bear in mind that this pie will have a lot of fiber. Okay, my assistant has completed slicing the apple. Just break it up with your hands, Isaiah. Break it up with your hands and put it in the bowl. Yep, take that core. You don't have to break the core, that'll melt down in the oven. Go ahead and put that in. Now break this up and put it in. And put it in the bowl. Alright, so while Isaiah's putting that in the bowl, we're going to put our peels in the bowl. We've got all our apple pieces in the bowl. Now comes the part when we're going to sweeten the apples. These are tart apples. I have to add some sugar. Now, traditionally people like to use white granulated sugar. Like I said, I'm cheap. I try to find alternate resources. I do have some white sugar, so I will be supplementing that. But I found that Gatorade powder and Nerds just works just as well and provides a little bit of a kick that you wouldn't normally have. Now, my favorite type of Gatorade is the Frost Glacier Freeze. You will see a little blue hue to the pie. Isaiah, can you get a scoop of Gatorade and put it in the apples, please? I'm going to open the Nerd boxes. The great part about this meal is that after Halloween, it's actually really inexpensive. That's good, Isaiah. Can you please add the Nerds to the pie? Isaiah, what's your favorite part about this apple pie?
Getting the peels off of the apples.
Yeah, that is fun, isn't it? So we're just going to add our second box of Nerds. These are strawberry flavored. It will enhance the apple flavor in the pie. Alright, so now we're just going to stir it in, make sure that the apples are mixed in well with the sugar items that we've put in there. Go ahead and stir that for me, assistant. Okay, good job. Alright, so once you're finished with the apple mixture, we have our pie crust, and we're just going to fill it with our pie crust. We're just going to put all the mixture into the pie crust. Now this apple slicer makes cutting apples easy work. I bought this apple slicer from a homeless Amish man in DC. I really think I got the better deal out of it. I bought it for $20. He was making them out of supplies that he had gotten from the Smithsonian dumpsters. One of the great things about eating food is that it's a commandment. For those of you who aren't aware, the Old Testament is covered with scriptures about eating food. One of my favorites is Corinthians 9:3. which reads, "Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you." I love that scripture. If it's living and it's moving, we should eat it. One of the things that makes apple pie making easy is my apple slicer. Now, this apple slicer has been handed down from generation to generation. I am the 4th Hodge to have received this apple slicer. Now, this apple slicer actually came from Korea. My great-grandfather was in the Korean War, and while prisoner from the North Koreans, learned how to make these. The North Koreans were able to smuggle it out during his escape attempt. And that's how it's ended up in my possession. Able to smuggle it out during his escape attempt. And that's how it's ended up in my possession. This is a treasured heirloom in my family, and I'm glad that I could be showing it to you today, and you guys will have an opportunity to taste of the fruits of my grandfather's imprisonment. This apple slicer is very special to me. It belonged to my great-grandmother Hodge. Some people said she was crazy. She was crazy about cooking. While my great-grandfather was poisoned by an apple pie, she still, to this day, cooks everybody apple pies. We're not afraid to eat them. My ancestors were famous for making pies. They made meat pies in England before they migrated to the United States. If you happen to be in London in the next couple of years, look them up. Hodge's Meat Pies. People are talking about people, they don't believe it. Let's give them something to talk about. A little something to figure out. How about love, love? Oh baby, you got what I need. Well, they say he's just a friend. They say he's just a friend. Oh baby! Mixing in the nerds can be hard. The nerds are kind of chunky. So you're going to have to make sure and break them up a little bit. If you don't break them up, they're going to break somebody's tooth. They tend to harden in the oven if you don't break them up. One thing about making pies that I like to do is sing a little song. Making pies is like making babies. It goes better with a little bit of song. I have to listen to it on my headphones though. My wife doesn't appreciate music on Sundays, especially the kind of hardcore music that I like. Okay, we've added our top pie crust. Now what we're going to do is cut holes in the top. This allows for the heat to get into the pie. If you don't poke holes in the top, the apples won't cook. It'll be nice and chilly in there. So we're going to poke holes in our pie crust and then put them in the oven. We've preheated the oven to 375. I myself am afraid of ovens, so I've got my children working the oven for me. All their hands work better in the oven, and if they get burned, they grow. The skin covers over the burns. My hands are old. If I burn, I'm done. These are money-making hands. These girls don't have jobs, so it's easier for them to work in the hot surfaces, work with the dangerous parts about cooking. Girls, can you come over and put the pies in the oven for me?
Not for real.
Thank you. So we're going to let those cook for about 3 or 4 hours. We put it, just let them simmer. When you start to smell them, you can take them out. All right.